Locally produced limited series Four Walls has screened at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival in Los Angeles. The fast-paced thriller tells a story of deception, secrecy and survival when married nurse Grace, appelled by Enhle Mbali Mlotshwa, is taken hostage by two fugitives. The series is showcased under the Black Creative Work leg of the festival, which coincides with Black History Month. Let's take a look at this.
Umuntu wesifazane ufana nami
khuluma nje udinga nje ukukhuluma kayi
kokuna kunomunye umunye mhawu uthuma tho unombandane olayithe akamuntu selakubulali Yewe na matala, ketwerega ketomu patala, ketwerega akatalotala, ketwerega wandala wasala, ketwerega.
Shock.
Sabona qala.
Nerna le CIT vandag vroeg.
Nimtolip?
Ja, verder om je aan met telefoon of toen je naar je naar Rizzo e pelle ga. Maar as ka waro lo bakre.
Oh, okay.
I keep Saka in the boot, I keep Saka in the stew, I keep Saka in my shoe in case the hot does need some proof. I keep Saka in the boot, I keep Saka in the stew, I keep Saka in my shoe in case the hot does need some proof.
Listen, answer grand.
For more on the film, we're joined by its co-writers and directors, Menzi Mzimela and JooVey, Dunn. Gentlemen, very good morning. Thanks so much for joining us on Newsfeed, the AM edition. Menzi, I'm going to start off with you. Incredible trailer. I mean, I certainly wanted to watch a lot more of it. Now, talk to us about how you came up with this story.
So basically, during lockdown, we're in a bit of a situation as a company because the industry was on a standstill. So we wanted to use that time to develop just an interesting story that we could contain and also put ourselves in a position where we can test our storytelling skills and just create something that's very entertaining, very grounded, and just see how well we can produce a show internally for the world to just experience. Yeah.
So, JooVey, one of the themes clearly is crime, and that's something that we're all too familiar with in South Africa. So how much of this is your lived experience or stuff that you are seeing happen in and around us day to day?
I think all of it. The idea came about Khosana, who's one of our writers, directors. He's actually in LA at the moment. He was attending the premiere for Four Walls. And the idea came from him when he was much younger, seeing two burglars basically on the run and then jumping into a house and hiding out in the house. And he basically said, I want to know what happened in that story. So I think, violence it's plagued every South African, I haven't had this incident happen to me, but I've had various other incidents happen to me. So it's such a big part of our society. But I think, as we develop the story, we wanted to understand where does violence come from, how do these people get to this part where they feel like this is the only way that they can make something of themselves. So yeah, unfortunately, I think it's such a big part of being a South African, sadly, and storytelling is a way, it's cathartic in a way for us to be able to tell our stories,
Now, Menzi, if you're going to tell a story about religion and how people worship or whatever it is, then you go to the people and you have a conversation with them. I'd imagine that the same holds true for crime, that there's got to be some conversation with criminals or criminal elements of society to establish exactly how they operate so that the film itself is realistic. Does this hold true in the production of this series?
Yeah, 100%. So we had to do two sets of research. We kind of had to research the cycle of abuse that women go through in this country because the character we're creating is a woman who's experienced stuff that us as men can never really experience or endure. So we went to deep research on that character so we can understand the story we're telling. And then we also had to do research on like CIT, cash and transit heists, and how that process gets us established to a point where people are doing that. So you're watching a lot of videos, having a lot of arguments, and just reading a lot of thesis on these two very big issues, and then combining them in this one room, so that we can have a better context of how to navigate the story and have a better understanding of our characters.
JooVey, Menzi raises the issue of abuse and how that is, one of those issues that is very, very topical in this country. I mean, the stats that we are coming across speak to multiple thousands that are abused, have all sorts of domestic or gender-based violence perpetrated against them. Does the storyline speak a positive message around gender-based violence?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. I think the series is more of a tragedy than it is more of a story of hope. When we did the series and we built around obviously Grace's character, who's a victim of GBV, we had to do, like Menzi said, a deep dive. But ironically, when we say deep dive, we have to do the psychological abuse first and how this happens and how does somebody get isolated. But ironically, her story arc, we found a lot of similarities and a lot of stories that was similar to Grace's character, which was sad because as soon as we Googled it, there was like 100 stories similar to Grace. That for us was heartbreaking. We didn't know how bad it was. And I think sometimes we understand, we consider GBV a pandemic. And we did do research, but ultimately, our research was more of how do we feel a woman ends up in such a drastic situation, because we often only see the ends of it, but Grace's character has 5 years before we see her, of how her husband isolated her, how he made her feel small, and then it starts with small physical abuse and then shouting, and then it escalates from there. So yeah, deep dive into psychological abuse, but I think in terms of her arc as a character, there were way too many stories that were similar to Grace, and I think was very shocking for us.
So, Menzi, let's talk about Four Walls specifically. It premiered yesterday in Los Angeles. Might be a little bit too early to tell what sort of reaction it would have gotten, but do you have any insights?
So Hosanna, one of the directors and the writers, told us that they loved it. Obviously, from a marketing perspective, it's a lot trickier, but the people that showed up said they just loved the show. They loved the story because as much as we're touching on these issues, the story is the most important thing. People go to watch stories and not to kind of like learn a lesson. So I was just very happy to hear that even internationally, even though we're touching on issues that are South African, just as an international story, people are enjoying it and loving it. Yeah.
So, JooVey, what happens now? You've premiered on this Pan-African platform. You've gotten a good reception. What's the next stage?
Well, it's still going to do its festival run. There's the few festivals still going to. There's a festival in Scotland, a festival in Argentina we've been accepted to. We've won a few awards on the way, which have been amazing for the series. And I think ultimately we are in discussion with various streamers at the moment in terms of selling it to a streamer. And then it will be seen by local audiences. That will be the ultimate, trajectory of the series.
So we have to wait for it to be purchased by various streaming services before we can watch it locally?
Yes. Unfortunately, that is
we were hoping we could pop the champagne with you already.
We will be screening it soon. We've had a few screenings locally, but yeah, we will screen it and we will announce once we've discuss which streamer we're going to go with. But I think for us, ultimately, we wanted the film to travel. We wanted the film to be seen by people around the world and local audiences in cinema. That was the first phase. The second phase will be VOD.
Now, Menzi, finally, what we know is that writers and directors of such content don't sit idle, always have various projects up their sleeves. What's up your sleeve?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So I've had the honor and the privilege to get an opportunity to make a feature. It was first picked up by JooVey and Hosanna, a script, and so we're now working on a feature. I'm not sure how much I can share. I'm busy trying to see JooVey's face, but
no, you can share. We're basically in pre-production for his film. It was written by Menzi. Amazing. It's actually I can tell you the genre. It's a horror. It's very different. Amazing. But again, it's a great story. it's in the genre horror, but it's just an amazing story that we're very proud of Menzi. Writing.
Cool, yeah. And it touches also on South African issues, but very story focused for just the South African and international audience.
JooVey, I was going to go without giving you another question, but you brought in that subject matter, which is called horror. And horror is generally not something that we do in a big way on the continent. What's inspired this particular horror story?
Well, obviously, that's actually more of a question to Menzi. Menzi wrote the script in his own time. He came to us and we read it. And we obviously worked on it. And we just love the story, I think. For us, there's different types of genres. You can do a comedy, but ultimately we connect with great story, great character. So it doesn't really matter what the genre is. And I think what's interesting about South Africa right now is that the landscape is so vast. We're growing. There's so many different platforms. There's the Netflix, Amazons, the local Mzansi, Showmax. So and for us, I think there's so much to be unpacked in our country. So I don't think that we're going to have one genre focus anymore. I think we're going to have a multitude of genres that people are going to make films around. So which is very exciting for us, I think.
Well, gentlemen, appreciate your time this morning. Just been speaking to Menzi Mzimela, co-writer and director, and JooVey Dunn, writer and director as well as producer of locally limited series Four Walls, which was featured at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival in Los Angeles.